Minister, we just heard the Taoiseach earlier on here say that the issuing of a climate emergency here was just symbolic. And I think that, in turn, was symbolic of the government's approach to climate change. We had a meeting with Mr Halligan last summer, I think it was, where the controversial comments by the head of Science Foundation Ireland, where he'd kind of underplayed the significance of this climate issue, raised real concern. And we raised concern at the time that the priorities for Science Foundation Ireland wasn't in the switch to decarbonised economy. And so I want to ask here today, what has changed? What is changing? What does the government intend to do in working with Science Foundation Ireland to put climate decarbonisation centre stage in our research priorities, which it certainly isn't at the present time, and there's no evidence that anything is changing in that regard? I'd be keen to hear from the Minister in that regard.
For a very important question. Can I just first of all say that the research funded by Science Foundation Ireland, the strategic direction that the agency provides is central to achieving many of the government's national strategic priorities as outlined across the range of policies and strategies. That's through Project 2040 and 2020. And there are a number of activities that I can, if I had time to outlay to you, regarding climate change and the transition to low-carbon economy. Science Foundation's funding of scientific excellence with economic impact is also crucial to many aspects of the government Future Jobs strategy. Future Jobs Ireland 2019, launched on the 10th of March last, is the first in a series of annual reports as part of the new multi-annual framework to ensure our enterprises and workers are resilient in preparing for future challenges and opportunities. And this is, if you like, whole of the government approach, which will form a key part of the economic agenda, medium term and long term, but certainly medium term. One of the major agencies of my department, of course, is Science Foundation Ireland, who I regularly meet, and they were allocated last year 206.61 million in 2019. Science Foundation Ireland's key priorities for this year include the development of a network of 17 Science Foundation Ireland research centres to provide world-leading capacity in strategically important areas of research for the economy. Last week, for instance, the second phase funding of 6 of the original 2012 centres was announced, involving an investment of 230 million and match funding from industry of another 230 million, 460 million altogether. In March 2019, an additional 15.5 million of dedicated funding was announced for PhD research masters enrolment through new 6 SFI centres for research training, CRTs. The centres will train 700 postgraduate students in areas of national and international identified future skills needs of digital data and, of course, ICT. The first student intake will be in September 2019. The new programme will see an investment of over 100 million from the government over an 8-year period. The 6 centres are, of course, machine learning, digital enhanced reality, advanced networks, sustainable society, foundations, data and science and artificial intelligence. And the new science programme is directed in response to the Action and Innovation 2020 to increase PhD and research masters output in areas aligned to central needs.
Will be included in the official report.
Okay.
First supplementary.
I remember when we founded Science Foundation Ireland, I was in the Dáil at the time when we set the legislation, and we asked Bill Harris, the first CEO, why was it that the whole issue of decarbonising wasn't one of the priorities. And he agreed actually that that was a regret, but the agency went on, concentrating on data analytics and biopharmacy areas. We changed that in our time in government to put that third leg in the stool, and we're starting to really implement that. But in the last 8 years, that has disappeared. Minister, I'd have to say I take as evidence the announcement last week, while it's welcome that 230 million to be invested, as you say, in those 6 centres. The reality is that that's symbolic in a sense of where we are, because of the 6 centres, and I have nothing against the Amber and APC and Insight, the data analytics and the whole bioeconomy areas, there was only one of those 6 in the funding of the Mary Centre down in Cork, which you would say directly linked to that third leg of the stool in terms of investment in climate action. So what's changing? Where is the evidence of that priority reflecting in the actual money and the research centres that have been supported? I don't see it happening under the current programme.
Minister.
Science Foundation Ireland funds a number of large-scale research projects, the impact which have relevance to many of the recommendations outlined in the Citizens' Assembly report on how the state can make Ireland a leader in tackling climate change. Examples include the area of climate-friendly agricultural practices, renewable energy sources and the migration of climate change effects. Also, these projects are being funded in partnership with industry. Both SMEs and MNCS's investment in fundamental research is a critical area to ensuring that Ireland is well positioned to deploy future climate migration technology. You did mention the Mary Centre. We just made awards to the Mary Centre, Minister Humphreys and myself, a few days ago. Can I also say that world-leading researchers and experts matter? SFI is actively recruiting these researchers in Ireland, to Ireland, I should say. For example, the world-leading economic geologist, Professor Murray Hisman, I don't know if you've heard of him, but I have, who in 2018 was appointed director of the SFI Research Centre, ICRAG, which focused on applied geoscience. Professor Hisman moved to Ireland from the US to take up a post here in Ireland. The SFI investments are producing the skills required to advance the relevant sectors in Ireland through funding MSc, PhD and postdoctoral positions.
Final supplementary, Deputy Ryan.
I very much welcome the likes of the arrival of Mr Hisman here and wish him and the ICRAG Centre the very best of luck. It's important we look at that. But I could still come back to, and I was hoping to get some sort of breakdown, or maybe the Minister could apply this later in a written response. But in the actual percentage of funding going to various categories, it seems still our priorities within the State Research Centre is in that original two founding areas of priority, which was data analytics and biopharma. And I think that needs to change. And I'm looking for evidence of the change other than that investment to Mary, which I welcome, or indeed the arrival of Mr Hisman. I don't see it in the overall direction of investment and priorities within SFI, and I think that needs to change. And I think it needs to change because this is the area where globally the most advanced research is going to be needed. Every country is going to be doing this. We, if we're going to become climate leaders, should be leading on it too, and we're not in the current SFI programme.
I will give you an analysis and a breakdown on the 17 research centres. Just a little bit of information that a former Mary researcher is now technical director of SME Ocean. You probably heard of Ocean Energy. They're building a 1.2 MW megawave energy device in Portland, Oregon, as part of US-Ireland collaboration. So I think that, in my view, the 17 research centres, and you're well aware that how funding and how they are developed and have been developed over the last number of years. I would finally say very briefly that Ireland has now ranked 9th in innovation on the innovation scoreboards in Europe. And in the top 10 science subjects, Ireland is now 2nd in agri-science, 2 in nanotechnology, 4 in chemistry, 5 in material sciences. And all of that, or not all of it, but a lot of it has to do with the work that's been done through Science Foundation Ireland and their cooperation with major industries, universities and institutes of technology. But you are correct that a lot more needs to be done on defining what climate change is, how we deal with it, and can we deal with it through our research centres. And what I will do is, within a week, I'll have an analysis done as to where we work on climate change and so on, and how we address climate change to any of the centres, and I'll have them sent on to you, Deputy.